Thanks for joining us today on the Big Blue Podcast. I'm Greg Stone, Southeast Campus Provost, here with Dr. Lee Goodson, our president, at Professional Development Day at NSUBA. Hello, Dr. Goodson.
It's a great day. How are you doing?
I'm doing well.
Yeah.
We took a little time from some of our concurrent sessions in the afternoon to sit down with a few people, including Heather Hancock, who's here with us, our Director of Civil Rights Compliance and the college's Title IX Coordinator. Now, not also emergency operations, because that job has been filled by Kurt Nielsen, who will have some time down the road, who can just focus on that. Just so, Heather, you can focus on Title IX issues and civil rights compliance, because both of those jobs are more than full-time jobs, as you know. So thank you for the great work you've done in emergency operations as well the last couple of years. But we're glad that you're able to focus a little bit more. And what are the trends that you've been noticing? I mean, you've been in this role coming out of student affairs now for a number of years. What are the things that you're seeing in terms of Title IX issues and civil rights claims? Are there themes emerging that now you're able to speak to after a couple of years of leading some of those investigations?
Yeah, I think the most thing that I would say is it's really helping us change our language in our culture. I think all of us pause a little bit more to make sure that we're being inclusive with our language, making sure that we're not being stereotypical of one gender or one race or anything like that. And so I think that's what I hope people think when they think of Title IX, of really providing a safe place for people to be, not to have to deal with things that make us feel discriminated against or harassed. But honestly, when some of the cases that come through, they're like, this is a conversation, they go back and they talk about, you know what, I probably shouldn't have maybe done this or that, and I'm getting better at it. So I really feel like that Title IX has helped us all as a culture shift and think about our language with each other better. That's what I've seen in the last couple of years.
Last year was our first year to have all of that training available to us online, and it was really helpful to get some basic things in terms of safety in Title IX and a couple of others, defensive driving, right? Yes, we took some of those. So any employees that were here last year have had the Title IX training. But for new employees who haven't yet been here long enough to go through that training, can you just give us a little overview of Title IX? And what is the college's responsibility to students and employees under Title IX? Just a basic, because I think, and let me just say this before you answer it, I think a lot of people think it's just about women, or it's just about NCAA athletics. Right. And while some of that may have been the origins of it, it's become something that protects and advocates for more than just female athletes. Mm-hmm.
Well, and what's interesting is the very first landmark case, I'm sure you all know this, was actually a male. He had filed a case. He was trying to take care of his ailing mother. Well, the laws at that time said if you're a female, you can have time off, but if you're a male, you cannot. So his was actually the very first case because it discriminated against him due to his sex. And so females could get something that he could not. So actually, a lot of people don't even know. That's like the very first thing.
That's the first one. I did not know that.
The very first one.
What year was that? Do you remember?
60s?
The decade? The 60s.
Mm-hmm. Uh-huh. Yeah. And so he's the one that was brave enough to file that first one to say, I deserve the same rights as the females. So, and so it is a federal law, protection on the basis of sex. Now, it was sports for the longest time, and now it's expanded so much larger to domestic violence, dating violence, stalking, sexual harassment, and sexual assault. So on any of those bases, if someone is struggling with any of those issues, they can file them in our office, and then we can help investigate, look into, have conversations, and merge those so people feel safe in those places, but if something may have happened. So that's what Title IX is about right now.
Mm-hmm.
And then part of it also outlines who is a mandatory reporter.
Yes.
Which is something that we've been all learning about the last couple of years, about what you're required to tell and who you're required to tell it to. If a student or another employee comes up to you and talks about some discrimination or assault or harassment they've been the victim of or they've been told about. So talk to us about the role of mandatory reporters. Who is and who isn't, because there
Okay.
are a couple of exceptions, right?
Yes.
And then how do employees report information about an assault or discrimination? What's that process like?
So all employees, full or part-time, other than just one or two people that are actually outside the college. Divis right now is our confidential reporters, but all employees are mandatory reporters. And it's a really hard conversation if maybe you've seen a peer do something, or if you see two students that you know in class and you see something happening, or if a student said to you, please don't tell anybody. That's what happens a lot. Please, I'm going to tell you something, but please tell nobody. Well, they are required to tell the Title IX office. And what I tell people is this: please don't think of this as like tattling. This is your way of getting them resources that can help them be successful in college. That's what all of this is about. Because we know all the students that are going through this are struggling, and if we can help pave the way, then they will graduate, which is what all of us are about, is to providing. And domestic violence right now is our biggest issue. School started just 2-3 weeks ago, and honestly, in the last 3 weeks, we've had a lot of domestic violence cases. And somebody said the other day, they were like, oh, wow, why is it so increasing? And I said, it's not. Employees now realize they are mandatory reporters. And so a professor that went to my session the other day, he came to my office and said, I always know I had to tell you if I saw something, but I had no idea if it was off campus. And he said, so I have someone that's living in the shelter now for domestic violence. And so I connected with her, and we are getting her classes online because she's scared to come to the campus. And so we're not going to let her stop. She says, I want to finish. I have to finish. So that's what Title IX is about really helping students be successful.
And a point that you made when you came and visited with adjunct faculty a couple of weeks ago before the start of the semester, that even part-time employees,
Yes.
including adjunct faculty, are mandatory reporters.
Yeah.
But really, people need to report to you and your office, not to their dean or department chair or supervisor, right? It really just needs to be a call or an email
Straight.
to your
Yeah.
office, so that other people aren't made aware of a situation, because we do have to protect the victim's privacy.
Right. These are not fun stories that people hear. And so I think we would all love the privacy of, if someone knew our story, of protecting it at the utmost level. And that's what our responsibility is. So making sure. And what I see happen is it goes to lots of people because they don't know who to send it to. So a mandatory reporter sending it straight to the Title IX office is exactly what we need to do to protect everybody involved and everything that we can do for that. So yes.
Well, I'm Lee Goodson here with my co-host, Dr. Greg Stone, and you're listening to the Big Blue Podcast. Our guest today is Heather Hancock, and we've been talking about what our college is doing to protect the rights of our students and ensure we as an institution remain in compliance. So let's switch gears a bit and talk about students who are pregnant.
Okay.
Because I don't think that people necessarily realize that pregnant students also are protected under Title IX, and you've said that category of students is one of the most impacted. How should faculty and staff members support students who are pregnant or who have recently had a child? And you talked about this a little bit at adjunct faculty orientation that evening. And so talk to us just a little bit about that, because that was new information for me personally. And,
Okay.
and when we went through the training, right?
Yes.
And so tell us a little bit more about that.
And I think some of the online training that's created with some of these companies, they leave out the pregnancy piece. And honestly, that is a huge piece at TCC, because our age of students is right there. And so we do have a lot of students that are pregnant or have maybe just had a child. And so what I want to tell people is, right now, we don't have to make a student choose between having a child or going to college. The law protects them to be able to do both. And so, honestly, working with the professors to see how we can make that work, being flexible if they're sick, coming up with alternative assignments if they can't go to a certain trip or something. I mean, always being creative about that. And so I talked to faculty. That is a space this last year, the pregnancy has grown exponentially. And faculty are like, okay, call me to talk about how to do this. And a chemistry instructor, I think he called me 3 times. I'm like, I don't mean to be mean, but I didn't do all that great in chemistry. And I can help you with thinking, but I want to connect you with other chemistry instructors to think of the learning objectives. The goal is not to lower the rigor, but it's just to make it more flexible for the individuals to complete that while they're trying to do everything with the birth of their child and everything. So what is an alternative assignment that still gets to the same learning objective? There's lots of ways to do that. So my job has been really to help advise faculty members what that looks like, because sometimes when you have a syllabus and you teach a class just like this, it's hard to deviate from what is exactly there. And so I can give them ideas to think about, oh, here's your learning objective, here's a few things to think about. And so this next year, I'm going to focus on more resources for employees with pregnancy, because it is getting more students know about their rights, which is great. Mm-hmm. And so more faculty are like, I just need help. Like, this is hard. This can be kind of hard. So this next year, I'm going to focus a lot of resources on that. So.
And in terms of, providing more resources and further training, and Dr. Goodson mentioned earlier that we have required Title IX training for all employees every year. And in addition to the online options, you've also been doing training in person,
yes,
sometimes for really
all
large
day.
Groups of people, all day, and really
yeah,
large groups of people. What are the options that employees will have for their Title IX training this next year?
So this next year, they can do it online or in person with me. And so we have so many employees that took the online version last year, and it's exactly the same. Our contract, it would be exactly the same. And so I really want to encourage people to come to the in-person. I kind of throw out examples that I've seen. I go into more depth on the pregnancy than the online version does. And so I'm making it 30 minutes, and it's been very difficult because I talk a whole lot. But I'm trying really hard for faculty to have another way to do it, because the online piece, I felt like it was kind of cumbersome last year, and I don't want negativity around Title IX. I'm like, how can we break that down? I don't want them to be frustrated with the online training. So I'm offering more and more options to employees, particularly faculty, because of time restraints. And so I've done 500 employees in the past 2 weeks.
Wow.
And they've all said this was so much better than sitting down and taking a test and doing the online version. So it's been really successful these last couple of
That's
weeks. So
a lot.
yeah, it's been a lot. But
That's
I've loved it.
lot.
I love, because faculty tell me things that they're seeing, and that's important for me to hear from them,
Right.
some of the things that they're seeing. So it's a beneficial kind of training, can help out.
And
So.
people who don't know you or haven't worked with you
Yes.
before can put a face
Yes.
with the name and really connect with you. And
Yes.
and you've probably had the experience of someone coming up to you afterwards, and maybe, and if they haven't, it's probably going to happen soon, right? Where
Every training.
someone thinks of something and,
Yep.
oh, I need to go talk to her afterwards, and so you make that connection right
Yes,
then.
it's been, and to encourage them that we can work through anything, that, oh, I forgot, I didn't tell you this. It's okay. We can work through this, and I'm here to help you all. So it's been really good, so.
Well, Heather, we ask one final question to each of our
Okay.
guests. And
Which
we-
you've answered before,
Which
because
you've answered
you've been here
before.
before. But feel free to
So-
change it.
You're welcome.
Still the same.
Is it still the same? Okay.
It is still the same.
If you could go back in time and give your 18-year-old self a piece of advice before you started college, what would it be? And I say this knowing I've known you through a couple of
Yes.
different disciplines.
Yes.
Because
And
when
2 different colleges.
and 2 different colleges, right? We worked together when I was at the OSU Center for Health
Yep.
Sciences and you were at OSU IT.
Yep.
So I'm curious what you're going to say, because I don't remember what you said last time.
It was a long time ago, so-
Yeah,
It's been a few years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So for me, I worked 3 jobs going through through college.
Okay.
And my hope would be to tell myself, work less and engage more in the college experience. Many times I would go to class, run to the bank to work, run to then the second job, and then doing work in the middle of the night. I wish I would have I don't know how I would have done it differently, but not have to work as much and really engage with more of the experience. That's what I wish I could have done.
That's good advice. It's hard for
It
some
is
of
so
our
hard.
students.
And they're
Right.
dealing with the same things,
Yeah,
all
our
these
students are
jobs and
dealing
trying to
with the same
balance
things,
all of
yeah.
that. So
Absolutely.
Well, thank you for
Yes.
that.
And thank you for listening to the Big Blue Podcast. We want to thank our guest, Heather Hancock, for being here. Thank you for listening as well. Remember, you can catch us in the week at TCC each week and on the Creativity channel at YouTube. Dr. Goodson and Heather, thanks for being here.
thank
Yeah.
you.
We'll see you next
Thanks,
time.
Heather.